What's up? Welcome into the Field of 68 presented by BetMGM. It is the inaugural mailbag show we've got here for you. First time ever. Can't wait. I'm Dalen. Great to be with you, everybody. First time I'll be hosting a Field of 68 show with these esteemed characters, minus McCall. He's a clown. That is Matt McCall, former great coach at UMass, East Tennessee State. If you've seen the guy on the Florida bench in the years past, he still claims to be a Florida fan, hangs the flag outside for football games until they lost one. He took it down. I digress. Mike LaTulip joins us as well on the show. McCall's dying to respond to that. Give me a second, brother. Let's just introduce everybody. Mike LaTulip in the mix. Jerel, McNeal, definitely the best player out of the group here. Sorry, Mike, I'm tossing us under the bus, but definitely better than me for sure. I'm going to throw you in the mix there too. So great to be with you guys today. And okay, McCall, if you'd like to respond, give me 1 second. Let everybody know. We had to cull. There were thousands of questions that came in for this inaugural one. Thousands. We have had to cull them down to like 8 to 10. We'll be with you for the next hour. If you want to get in the chat, fire something in the chat. We'll be watching. Guys will be monitoring. Dagan and Trevor will get those loaded up. Maybe we can get some questions answered live as well. McCall, do you have a rebuttal before we begin?
No, I mean, I left the flag up for a while. It was up there. It was out there. I mean, then they
I believe after USF it came down. I believe after USF it came down. USF down.
I couldn't find it.
Half mass.
It was half mass. Half mass. Half mass, Mike. Half mass. After the USF game, it may have gone down to half mass. But no, we're here, man. It's hoop season. Let's go.
We are
Gators versus Arizona Monday night. Tip it up.
There you go. Big game. One of the premier games along with BYU Villanova Monday night. Just real quick as we're getting ready here, we'll get the mailbag. We'll get it going in a second. Jerel, as you're looking forward, we got days left, 5 days till we tip this thing up. What is the thing you're most excited about as we are on the last week of the off season?
I think it's going to be really fun, exciting time again. I think the one thing that stands out in my mind is just the bag of freshmen that we had. Obviously, we had a good group as well last year, man, but we got some really exciting names, a lot of hype leading into it, a lot of paydays as well. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're good to see some early debuts and see what some new faces, same faces in different places in a couple different schools and things like that, man. So it should be a fun time, man. It should be an exciting season.
Real quick here, you got a bunch of shoes behind you. Do you want to give us? Is there a highlight in there? What's going on? We got a rack of shoes.
I don't have necessarily a highlight. As you can tell, I got some of my I'm preparing for the snow, so a couple of the Nike winterized boots up there. I think I got a pair of like hot pink pennies back there in the back, the orange Kobe's right there. Can't go wrong with the Kobe's, man. So I got a couple hidden gems back there, but nothing crazy, man. I still pull those things out and just.
Jerel, we don't have a problem with the snow down here, so you can come down here. Like, don't worry about it. Like, come down to Florida.
It must be nice, man. It must be nice, man. I'm preparing for the worst, man. Winter is coming.
Sound like Jon Snow. Mike, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm in somewhat of the same boat as Jerel. I'm up here in Indy, so it won't be as cold as it is in Chicago. But I'd say, look, coming into this season, I think the power dynamic between conferences is always the most fascinating thing to me. I think last year was a historic run for the SEC, and how do they follow that up this year? There's a lot of talk about the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 could arguably be the best at the top compared to all these conferences. And then the ACC, what kind of jump can they make? And then you have the Big East too. So that's always the most fascinating thing to me, who kind of rises to the top here. And we got so much talent throughout college basketball and across these conferences. So I'm fired up, man.
It's a good point, especially with the metrics now. If you lose those games early, your stuff is baked. Like once we hit January, if your league has struggled, it is a wrap. We've seen the ACC flounder in years past. We've seen the Big 12 and the SEC in the last couple of years be at a place of strength where it doesn't matter how many games they lose almost. You're in a place of strength, given especially what we saw the SEC do last year. Mr. McCall, Mr. Florida? I was going to say Floridian and mixed. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this year is going to be a lot of fun. And I agree with Jerel just in terms of the freshmen. Last year, and this is not a knock on anybody else that was a freshman in college basketball, it was about one guy. And it was Cooper Flagg. He was the freshman, and that's not a knock on anyone else, but he was the guy. But you look at who's the guy this year. We got DeBonsa at BYU. We've got Peterson at Kansas. We got Boozer at Duke. We've got Tunde Yusufu at Baylor. Like, there's a lot of these guys where it's like, okay, this freshman class, like, this is real. Last year was one guy. This year, it's going to be interesting to see. I said this earlier on a podcast today with Goodman and Hummel. You know, nobody would be shocked if two of those guys are All-Americans after the season. So that's a storyline. Can Florida repeat? That's a storyline. You know, Purdue, can they win the national championship? That's a story. I mean, the storylines going into college basketball this season are through the roof. We just got to create some buzz. We got to get some buzz next week. I wish there were some better games just in terms of creating that buzz. And I kind of went on a rant earlier today about that. I mean, kudos to Florida and Arizona for playing that game. Villanova, BYU, that's a big game. Texas Duke is a big game. But it's like, guys, where's everybody else? Like, come on, man. We need to stop talking about, you know, what college football coach got fired and how much their buyout is. Let's talk about some hoops next week because it's the first game, the first day of college basketball season.
Billy Napier, 21 million. But anyway, I will say that I agree with what you're saying right there. Like the problem is, before we get to the group questions, I have one other question for you about this because I posed this to a bunch of coaches at different media days the last couple of weeks, and I would like to get your guys' thoughts because this is the problem. You have a league or a league that is the NCAA, that is this body that is supposed to run this sport that really doesn't run it as efficiently as it can. I mean, Dan Gambon's doing the most he can being the VP of the sport, but overall you need to make these guys and gals play big showpiece games in the non-league season. Some teams do it. Some teams carry that flag. I mean, Duke, Carolina, Kansas. There are teams that say, hey, it's our responsibility. We need to do this. And they operate as such. That's helpful. Starting the season on Monday night against Monday Night Football, probably not the right thing to do. And that's like, there are things like that just don't make that much sense to me in terms of garnering attention. So let me ask you guys this question, because as I said before, to Mike's point, the metrics are baked once you hit January. We're trying to gain more attention in the November-December period. By the same token, teams are improving more than we've ever seen November through the rest of the year because you got all these new players, new teams. They're getting better. But if your metrics are kind of baked as a league, by the time you hit January, it's hard to really show improvement and help change your stature. What would you guys think if, and McCall, we'll start with you as a former coach here that might want to weigh in on this. So some coaches were on board, some push back a little bit. To have more league games played early, so it generates the normal rivalry, at least some of the league games that are old rivals and have been around for a while, in your league season, in the November-December timeframe that maybe some fans get excited about, have some awareness about, and you can promote, and you have the same media partners. And then non-league games more in January and February where you can build these made-for-TV events at campus sites once football is completely over, and it gets you a step out of league play. We saw Illinois and Duke do it last year, granted at a neutral site, but it used to be more common. We used to see that, in 10 or 20 years ago. So McCall, I'll start with you. From a metric standpoint and from an attention standpoint, if you could build these things out better, do you think that would help us in the non-league season and in the league season?
Dalen, I don't know if it'll help in the non-league. I mean, college football is going now, to January 25th or something like that. So around that point, I don't know, but I think something else has to be done to create more buzz with what we're doing in November and December. Like it has to be done. Playing league games there, it could get fans excited. There's no question about it. So I mean, getting creative, I love the idea. I love the idea to get creative and say, this is how we're going to create more excitement around college basketball in November, December, because everybody's playing. I mean, the ball's getting tipped up on Monday. And I totally agree with you just in terms of starting the season on Monday Night Football, in the fall. It doesn't make a ton of sense. But we've got to do something to create more buzz around the sport.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a fool's errand to think that you can go up against football in any of this. And I think to me, it starts with media days too. I don't know why we're having media days in October. I mean, I know people are like, well, football is in August and September. Football's in October. And if anything, it's ramped up even more at that point. So to the point of the schedule, the reason why, because again, I think you always be up against football. 1, 2, I do think, and McCall, you can probably speak to this definitely more than I could, but I just know from being in those locker rooms, coaches like that gradual build up to that kind of inflection point, that turning the corner of, the new year to get into conference play. Now the Big Ten plays 2 conference games in December. Every team does, but I think they like that gradual build. And honestly, like, exhibition season I like the exhibitions, don't get me wrong, but it's just another way for these schools to say, no, we have played big games. They were just big games that didn't count. So,
That's a great point.
Michigan plays St. John's and Kentucky plays Purdue, and it's like, well, now we can dial it down a little bit for our first 3 or 4 non-conference games because we just played Kentucky. So, that's a component of it too, because these were not happening secretly, yes, but they were not happening as a whole. What, 4 years ago, 3 years ago? It started as like a charity thing.
The Goodman was releasing all the box scores. Were they really a secret?
No,
well, they were supposed to be. But to Mike's point, you couldn't say like we just played them as much. It's like you weren't talking about it. Now you're out there being like, here's what I'm breaking down my film, and here's what we saw, and here's what you saw, and we're treating it like a regular game. So it's a great point, Mike. Jerel, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think Mike kind of hit it on the head, and that was one of my thought process points was that Matt said we need to get more creative. How are we able to get more creative with some of this preseason stuff that they're doing? And it's not to knock that, because a lot of the stuff is for a good cause, and the proceeds are going to certain charities or different endeavors and things like that. But how are we getting more creative in that aspect than trying to do something to jump off the college basketball season? It's going to be hard always to compete with football, but just another viewpoint and thought process that I had. What about the schools, sort of like the Big East type schools, that type of conference where football isn't king. A lot of the schools, basketball is king. So, maybe scheduling something to doing more games in between schools like that don't have the dynamic football programs that where all the fan attention is going to be there until after the new year, or just at the end of the day buckling down, man, and just everybody for the greater good, strapping their boots on and scheduling tougher games. Why not? Especially with the way things are trending. I know this is a little bit off topic, but I mean, damn, they're about to there's going to be 90 teams in the NCAA tournament here soon. So I think all the schools that are worried about, their metrics and things like that at the early points of the season, I think you'll be okay at the end of the day. Like, man, go see where you are early on in the year, play a game that makes you uncomfortable, get guys out of their kind of comfort zone against high level talent, and kind of get a better feel. I feel like, and Matt can speak to this as well too, you kind of get a better feel or a gauge from what you're coaching as well in that regard too. Once you kind of you've been in a real war with teams that you're going to be seeing during the conference level too.
Well, Jerel, I think it's an awesome point, and I'm not knocking MTEs. I think MTEs are amazing. I like the Battle for Atlantis, Maui, whatever MTE it may be. I think those are great events. But if we're trying to put college basketball on the map in November and December, home and homes, man, and don't be afraid to play them. Like, do not be afraid to play them. Go play them. Not that the Champions Classic's not a great event. I'm not saying that. I think those are great events, but UConn playing Kansas at Kansas. Talk about a game. Talk about a game. Like, everyone's tuning in. If you're a college basketball fan, you're tuning into that game. 1,000%. The rival between Kentucky and Louisville, everybody's tuning into that. So can we get more of that? Florida, Arizona to start college basketball season is an awesome game, but it's in Las Vegas. Can you imagine if that game was at Arizona? Like a home and home, like play more home and homes. And listen, as a guy that was a head coach, and I get it, like you're concerned, we got to get off on the right foot. We got to make sure that, we have some momentum playing these other games, but we're also trying to create more excitement around college basketball. You play a Tuesday night game in November and you put Kentucky on the floor against a Duke, people are tuning in. There's no question about it.
Jerel's a great point, and Mac, a great point to piggyback on it too. And the home and home part of it, I think, is critical. And we did see that. 2 years ago when UConn did go to Fog Allen, they ended up winning the championship that year, although they lost that game. that game was an outstanding game. Newton was a stud. I mean, it was a Friday night in December too, in early December. Like, there was nothing else on. It was the perfect time, and it was one of the highest rated games on ESPN's network that whole year. That was a mix of, you had the right teams, the right brands, the venue, and you did it from a scheduling programming place that made tons of sense. It requires your media partners now too to be in the mix. And we have, the media is fragmented. We know that. I mean, look at our, like we have a show now. 6 years ago, the show doesn't exist in the same format. Like, this is a different world we're living in, but that has more players now. I mean, obviously you've got, TNT's in the mix now with different rights, and you've got more from Fox, and you've got more from, ESPN's maybe losing some of their footing, but that's, again, spreading it out. You have more partners out there looking to produce content, looking to produce games, that if you can work with your partners, then you can make some pretty cool made-for-TV events. So, all right, let's get to the mailbag now. Again, first ever mailbag show. I believe we're going to do this more often. So let's just get to your first question submission. If you have one while you're watching us now, get in the chat, fire that off. Dagan and Trevor will be watching. Maybe get you in here live, but we'll start with a video that came in earlier today. So let's fire that up.
Give me your sleeper team from each power conference. What's a team that no one's talking about, that's going to come out of nowhere, have a great season, and make the second weekend of the NCAA tournament?
There was a beardless Zach Galifianakis from an airplane, I believe. That was the vibes I was getting from my guy right there. That was the vibe I was getting. Whoever that is, thank you, sir, for your submission. I don't have a name. Dagan, if you know some name, let's shout that guy out. Give it to me in the chat. I will shout him out. So let's, just for time's sake, he said from each league. I don't know if we have time for that, but if you want to go for one or two in a league, give me that, and we can have a discussion around those, and we'll try to kick this around for the next few minutes. Mike, let's start with you. So you got a sleeper team and a power league that you want to touch on.
Yeah, I want to touch on Washington in the Big Ten. And I think the sleeper in the sense of, I don't think they can win the league, but certainly will have a major leap compared to last year. I think they arguably have a top 5 roster in the league. And now it just comes down to Danny Sprinkle putting this thing together. I love the guard play with Claude and Yates. And then you got Mandequit with 12 assists in their exhibition game. Steinbach was incredible. So I'm excited to see how they put that together, because from a talent perspective, they're right up there with a lot of teams in the Big Ten. So that would be my first sleeper, would be the Washington Huskies.
There's a great point there, Mike. You can qualify, guys, what you think sleeper means. Like, sleeper doesn't mean win the league. Sleeper doesn't mean to go to the Final Four. You tell us what you think when you're talking about sleeper. For Washington, a team that's in the preseason Big Ten media poll, I think they were picked 11th. For them to finish in that top 4 and have a strong lead and contend for the league would be no doubt a sleeper. Jerel, what you got?
I had 2. Washington was definitely one, Mike. I think that's a great one. I think they're going to be really good, and people are going to know the name Kamari Peterson before it's all said and done. But I had I think and I guess this isn't really necessarily a sleeper, but coming off of the debacle that was last year, I think Kansas State is going to get a little bit better. I think they're going to kind of quiet some of the naysayers. Obviously, they spent a ton of money and things didn't go as planned last year. But I like the pieces that they added. I think they'll be able to bring it together. I don't think it'd be as bad or as much of a circus around the team. Those guys will be able to focus in, and they'll be right in the mix for within the Big 12. And also, I think Pitt is going to be okay. I know nobody's really talking about them. Obviously, they lost the point guard to Kentucky low, but they kind of re-upped a little bit. I like the move with going to get Deshaun Jackson from Iowa State, and also Polo Minor, man, my boy Polo from Oregon State. He should be kind of commanding the ship there in Washington, man. So I think they're going to be a competitive and a good team. Idrusidis, one of my kids I had is at Pitt now as well, too, from Iowa State. Didn't play a ton last year, but more than capable, skill, can shoot it a little bit. And they got a couple more good pieces, Barry Dunning Jr. as well, too. So those are my 2 off the top of my head that I kind of had synced in on outside of Washington.
McCall?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of sleepers, you're looking at the top 25 poll, and you're thinking of who's not in the top 25 right now. But before we go into the season, NC State, Will Wade's going to take that team to the NCAA tournament. There's no question about it. I love the excitement that he's creating around the program, the rivalry with players talking a little bit of trash. Like, that's good for our game. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. So I would say NC State, and I think this Scott Drew team at Baylor is way better than people are giving them credit for. Spending some time with Tunde Yusufo, I think that guy is an absolute stud. I think they have the right pieces. He's obviously proven he can win a national championship there. So I think Baylor's is creeping under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, McCall. Sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, Dalen. I was just going to agree with you.
On fire
Baylor.
in. Don't let me talk so much. Go.
No, I was going to say I agree with you on Baylor. Like they were going from each conference. They were mine in the Big 12. I just think I buy them having a bounce back year relative to their standards. Right, the defense was a disaster last year, just an abject disaster. I expect them to be much improved in that area and just really have more of a plan. So I'm in on Baylor, and then I'll just throw some SEC flavor in here as well. Arkansas would be my sleeper relative to metrics, and I know they're ranked in the AP top 25, but I think they can win that whole damn league. But my real SEC sleeper is Mizzou. I just think you get Mark Mitchell back. I like the change of scenery for Sebastian Mack. Those are two guys right there that just absolutely live at the free throw line. And Anthony Robinson is not only one of the biggest breakout candidates in the SEC, I think he's one of the biggest breakout candidates in America. So I have questions about that front court overall, but Mizzou Arena, I think, is one of the most underrated home court advantages in the league. And so that I think that can carry them in SEC play.
All right, now I had a tough time with this one. You give me a Big East one. I had a hard time with that. I
think Providence could do it. I think Providence could put. I think Kim English obviously last year was a disaster. And you have injuries, you have problems. He's a good coach and runs that team well. They're from a money standpoint, they paid to get some guys that have put up numbers at Power Conference schools, and they have some talented players. I think they're hungry. I think outside one of the biggest reasons that after you get through UConn, St. John's, and Creighton, the league's pretty wide open. You're going to have a lot of teams vying for contention at the top 4 spot, and then hopefully getting some contention into getting into the tournament and getting a good seed. I think Providence, a team with Kim English and what they've invested in, that could be a team that's returning to form, if you will, where they were 2 years ago versus where they were last year. What you got, McCall? Looked like you wanted to say something.
No, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But I'm with Jerel just in terms of who's the sleeper in that league. That is a great question. You could put UConn in the Final Four. You could put St. John's in the Final Four.
St. John's.
Georgetown.
Nobody's talking about them. Nobody is talking about.
And Georgetown. I think they'll be better. I do think they'll be better.
Yeah,
they've got to be better. I think Mac in his second year with them, as from a guard standpoint, they got some help in the backcourt. But Mac already having 1 year with Cooley, helps that team, helps them run the show a little bit better for sure. Real quick on Arkansas, because I think this is interesting. I think this is more about our culture in college basketball. We get so obsessed, and now Jerel, you made a good point. There are a lot of great freshmen, but we're just obsessed with what's new. And part of the problem with all these preseason rankings, we see it in football the last 2 years, we've seen it in basketball. We don't know what we don't know yet. If anybody's sitting there telling you, it counts for me, for sure. I'll tell you what I think right now, but that doesn't mean crap, honestly, because we have so many different dudes. You don't know how it's going to work. So teams you have high expectations for don't perform. Even in late December last year, you can get Florida to win the national championship still 25-1 because they had a weak non-conference schedule. You don't know what you don't know for quite some time in this new paradigm. Arkansas has a fair amount of retention and a coach that's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think it's funny that unless he has the certain new guys, we don't give Cal a shot, or he doesn't get as much love. I think Arkansas has a roster, to your point, Mike. They could win the league, and because it's the guys who are already there, not just the guys that are just coming in.
Well, and the guys that are coming in are incredible. I mean, Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, and it's the thing with those two is we see it throughout college basketball, really great freshman classes. And that doesn't mean just depth, but just you can have 2-3 really good freshmen. But how they the way John Martin used the word symbiotic last night, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking his word here, but the symbiotic relationship between those two specifically and why their games fit so seamlessly is you have this explosive scorer, this explosive three-point shooter, and slippery wing in Malik Thomas paired with a guy who arguably from the guard spot will get more rim pressure than anybody in the SEC in Darius Acuff. and how that works together, and how if I'm driving down the right slot and I'm Darius Acuff on a single side to Malik Thomas, and you're guarding Malik Thomas in the corner, and Darius Acuff beats his man, are you running in at the ball and leaving Malik Thomas? Or are you not and letting Darius Acuff get to the rim? Like, just I love the pairing of those two just as freshmen. And then you already have, like, clearly Cal wants to focus on defense. That's why I don't think Malik Ewan started in that exhibition game against Memphis. It's why I think Malik Thomas could eventually get there once he figures out the defensive end. But, like, how good were Billy Richmond and Carter Knox last year as freshmen? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know they didn't have gaudy numbers, but just how stable they were. They defended. They played their ass off. You return those pieces. DJ Wagner, I think just the maturity to be kind of like, okay, I'll be like a Quinn Cook to your Tyus Jones. Like, I'll kind of sit back and be more off ball. In Brazil, like, I love their makeup. And I think it's an absolute travesty that we don't have a Kentucky-Arkansas matchup in February or March. That is a travesty. Absolute travesty.
Oh my gosh. And to your point, Mike, like, in terms of Wagner, like, he's been loyal. Like, when Cal and the whole thing went down at Kentucky and he decides to go with him to Arkansas, like, the loyalty of that kid, like, that needs to be mentioned as well. And we'll see how it works with him and Acuff in the backcourt and everything. But that is a travesty. Arkansas and Kentucky not playing in those months is an absolute travesty.
Because it could come down to them. It could come down. Yes. It really could in the SEC. Absolutely could.
Yes.
I'm trying to see their schedule. When are they playing?
January 31st, I believe.
All right. Well, it better be a Super Tuesday game.
They have to play twice.
How the 31st is Saturday. That's a Saturday. Hold on. That is the game day game. Let's say right now.
How are they not doubles?
Your doubles in the SEC are all they're regional. So that's
you're trying to have the rival. This is
the
thing. This is what you can't have it both ways, though, McCall. Because I think the fans have been discarded through this whole realignment process. So the few things they are trying to do is, if they are repeats, you repeat with your rival. So like in the ACC, you're going to repeat Duke and Carolina, and that's it. So you're trying to create, to Mike's point, either the regional or historic rivalries to play twice. Versus, to your point, I'd say year to year they should change. But what is serving your fan base the best? You can't have it both ways. That's
Dalen, correct me if I'm wrong too. Duke does not play Miami this year. Jay Lucas's first season at Miami. They don't play each other. How is
now with 18 teams? Yeah.
Who doesn't want to see that? Like that. You tune into
hold on. Here's your question.
I don't understand.
If that happens, then it means there's no repeat of Duke Carolina. Then correct?
By the
numbers of the league, 18 teams in the league, you've got to play 18 games. So that if you don't repeat that one game,
I just know when I was coaching at UMass in the Atlantic 10, I did not know who I was playing every single year, and I would get the schedule, and it would be like, okay, these are your league opponents, and I had to go to Dayton twice, and I had to go to VCU twice, and I would be so mad and angry. St. Louis twice, but Rhode Island was our rival, so I can deal with that. I'll go there twice, that's fine, but or play them twice. How is Duke not playing Miami? Jay Lucas, McCall, John Shire.
You know what you're going to have to do? You have to call up Jim Phillips, get Jimmy on the horn, and give him a piece of your mind, all right? Until then, we got to move on. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired after this hosting situation. That's my first show. We're half hour in. We've gone through one question. All right. Okay. Let's get to the next question here. Let me pull them up. I think we got it on the tweet here. Diggin, you want to pop it up? Okay. Ohio State is ranked right outside the top 25 by most accounts and polls. Would you say they're closer to being a sleeper for a great season or another disappointment? Let's start with Mike from the Big Ten. Go ahead.
So again, I'll preface this. I lean disappointment relative to the metrics preseason, but I do think they can be an NCAA tournament team. My big thing for Ohio State is this is, not to be dramatic, but this is a legacy-defining season for Bruce Thornton. I mean, he's got all the counting stats. He's one of the most efficient offensive players in America. Now he just needs that winner tag. Like that's all he needs, I think, for us to consider him truly as one of the best guards in America, because I think he can be that. I think they're gonna play faster this year. They're gonna get him off the ball a little bit. I think, Christoph Tilly coming in is going to do wonders for him just with their 5-out spacing and cutting. And they're a really good shooting team as well. So, I again, disappointment in the sense of, being relative, like almost top 25 right now, but certainly could be an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if that's a cop out or not, but that's how I feel about the Buckeyes.
You weren't quite on the fence, but okay. It was you gave a solid answer. Jerel, what do you got?
No, I think they're much closer to being, just a sleeper team that has a really good season. Mike kind of hit on it already. I think so highly of Bruce Thornton. I know he's going to be, a top 5 point guard in the country, in my opinion, this incoming year. And they also return guys like, Devin Royal. He already mentioned Tilly, the big fella from Santa Clara. He's going to shore up their front line, give them a little bit more size and physicality and things like that, and they'll be able to run some 2-man game with him and Thornton. And you also got the freshman as well, man. Mobley Jr. was great last year. It seemed like every time I turned the TV on and watched the Big Ten game Ohio State was playing, that he was playing heavy minutes. He was showing no fear, and he was making a ton of big shots, man. So I think with them just kind of retaining that core nucleus of guys, obviously one of the best leaders in the country in Bruce Thornton with a couple strategical pieces added. I think they're going to be a team to look out for, man. But at the same time, it's going to be tough, man, because I feel like the Big Ten is loaded this year. So I got about 4 or 5 teams where I feel that same way about, like, man, not only can they have a really great year and surprise people and make a deep run, but things may not go as planned either, and the bottom might fall out of it. So I think you kind of hit it on the head with that. We don't really know anything.
McCall?
I know we got to hit a break too, but I'll say this just to close this one out. I'm rooting for Bruce Thornton. Like the loyalty that he's had to that program, being a guard from Atlanta, and the ups and downs. He loses his coach. He stays with his assistant coach, and he's one of the best guards in the country. Can you imagine the amount of phone calls and texts he's gotten after every single one of these seasons? And I'm sure he's being compensated at Ohio State. But for him to stay loyal to that school, I'm just rooting for the guy.
Good answer, better reminder. We do need breaks, and that's called an average host for you right there. Let's go to break. We'll be back in a minute.
We all know the Players Era Festival has become the best field in all of college basketball. And you have the opportunity to win a VIP trip to the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas, thanks to our partners over at BetMGM. Here's how it works. Opt into the contest and start placing bets on any sport of at least $10 with plus 100 odds or greater. When you do that, you earn leaderboard points based on the bet's odds and the amount that you wager. The more you bet, the higher the odds, the more points that you earn. The top players in that contest are going to win a prize package that includes tickets to the games, withdrawable funds for travel, a 4-night stay at the luxurious Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas, and more. For the full list of prizes, look in the description below. Make the tournament legendary with BetMGM. Vegas is calling. You gonna answer? The college basketball season will begin right here on the Field of 68. At 8 a.m. on November 3rd, we will be tipping off the inaugural Field of 68 opening day marathon. 15 hours of non-stop basketball. It will begin in Rock Hill, presented by our friends at Visit York County. Plan your itinerary today at visityorkcounty.com. Winthrop will face off with Queens in the opener, followed by Bradley taking on St. Bonaventure. Then we head out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it'll be presented by Sanford Sports, who is changing the way people play and making sports accessible and fun for all. Murray State gets Omaha at 1 p.m. Eastern time, with Drake taking on Northern Arizona in the second game in Sioux Falls. Then it's back to Rock Hill for a showdown between Furman and High Point, with Merrimack taking on South Dakota State in Sioux Falls in the nightcap. Tickets for all 6 games are on sale now at the links in the description below. Field of 68, opening day.
Welcome back to Field of 68, presented by BetMGM. This is our inaugural mailbag show. So if you got any questions, get in the chat, fire them off. We had some submissions by video and tweet. We'll get through some more of those alongside Matt McCall, Michael LaTulip, Jerel, McNeal. I'm Dalen Cuff. Let's continue on here, fellas, with we just went through Ohio State a little bit here. I think let's go to the video here, guys. Let's go to the next video one, guys. If you can't fire that up.
Hello, Field of 68. This is Andrew Schaefer from the Center Hub. Hope you're all doing well. Love listening to your content and watching it every day. My prediction, I'm not sure if it's bold or not, but my prediction is that all 37 at-large spots are going to go to a Power 5 school. I think the WCC, the A10, the American, and the Mountain West will all be one bid leagues. So that means Utah State and St. Mary's would be left out of my field. My question is, do you guys agree with the prediction, number one, and number two, is this a reflection of the NIL? Is this bad for the sport? Is this good for the sport? So that would be my question. But thanks for taking the time to listen to it, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. They're kind of two separate things. One is, do you think that's going to be all 37 at-large from Power 5 league, excuse me. The other piece saying, if that's the case, what that means for college basketball. There's an if that's the case. So let's parse through the first one. Do you think all 37 are going to be at-large teams? McCall, fire away first.
No, I don't. Last year in the Mountain West, what do we have? New Mexico, Colorado State. I think the Atlantic 10 is good this season. I think St. Louis, Robbie Avila, he's been in college for what? Probably 6 years now at least with what he's done.
As long as Mark Mitchell's been there.
Yeah, he's one of the best front court players in the entire country. I think Anthony Grant has a great squad at Dayton. We'll see, with VCU, with Phil Martelli Jr. You can't ever count out Mark Schmidt at St. Bonaventure. I'm looking at those two leagues in particular, and I'm saying there's no way that both of those leagues are one bid leagues going into the next season. Or once the bracket comes out, does the A10 get 2 in? Maybe. Does the Mountain West get 2 in? Maybe. I think it's too early to say that those are not multi-bid leagues. Way too early.
Mike?
Yeah, I think St. Mary's and Utah State will be NCAA tournament teams this year, but I am looking at the A10. I'm looking at the A10 hard because late 2010s, this was a conference, as we know, that was routinely getting 3 bids in the NCAA tournament. And now you've had 4 total bids in the last 3 years. And I think there's no, non-Power 4 conference that has gotten their great coaches poached like the A10 over the last probably 5 years or so. And I don't want NIL to be an excuse because there are A10 schools that have bigger budgets than some of the lower, more lower tier Power 4 schools. So I don't want to hear the NIL thing. I'm looking at the A10. It's got to be the year you kind of get back to form here.
Loyola Chicago, Coach Valentine, what he's doing there. This is – you got to win some games in the non-league. You have to win some games in November and February. That's the biggest key. But that's a basketball league. That is a basketball league, 1,000%.
But the problem is who wants to schedule them?
Nobody wants to schedule anybody.
Nobody will. Nobody will.
You mentioned the MTEs, though. When they're in those MTEs, you got to win. Like Dayton last year had some huge wins out in Maui, and that set them up to have a resume. Even when they struggled on the A10 at different times, they were able to carry that through. Like you have to win those games, and the league has to win those games. Like that's part of the problem is you got to do your job. But if the other teams don't at that A10 level, Mount West, we've seen in recent years have 5 teams in because they did their business in non-league and they get in the league, they can beat each other up. That still helps. That's why November and December is so critical. These leagues in particular.
In those leagues, Dalen, you're exactly right. Like my last year at UMass in the Atlantic 10, Dayton was a good team. Like Malachi Smith was a freshman. He's now at UConn. Like that was a good team. But I remember them being on the bubble the entire season. And what happened, they lost a game at LaSalle late in the year and it knocked them out of the tournament. So losing games on the bottom half of your league on teams that are not, towards the top, that hurts, especially if you have a bad night. That's the problem. But I think you see there's no way that the Mountain West and the A10 don't have more than one team in the NCAA tournament this year.
Jerel, where are you at?
Yeah, I think you guys all kind of hit it on the head with that. I think it's going to at least be 2 in the A10 and the Mountain West. and the A10 is, I mean, it's been a good league for the last couple of years. Even regardless of how many teams that they get in, if you watch the league again, and Matt kind of spoke to this, man, that's a basketball league. All of those schools there have pretty good tradition for historically having pretty good basketball programs. They're tough places to play on the road and things like that. So it's all going to come down to what they're able to accomplish early on in the non-conference. And like you guys said, they kind of got to they can't miss their mark when they get those opportunities. It's getting harder and harder for these mid-major schools to kind of schedule these opportunities for themselves and go on the road, because a lot of these bigger schools don't want to play them. So when they get their shots, they can't miss, man. And they really need all of the teams in the league to do well as well too, because sort of like what Matt just spoke to, once you get to the dog days of the season, and you're gonna drop some games in conference with the opponents being more familiar with one another and coaches more familiar with one another, and you're gonna have off or bad nights or whatever it may be. You hope that team has a decent or a solid resume so that your metrics don't get hurt as much. So, but at the end of the day, you still need to try to win the games that you're supposed to win.
Yeah, you have to, and that's the hard part of being in some of those leagues. You mentioned having an off night. Everybody does. You just you almost can't in certain leagues at certain times where the metrics are. Let's keep it going. Let's go to the YouTube chat here. We have somebody wrote in, what do you think of Creighton this season? Can they push for top 2 in the Big East? Well, thank you for the question. Wouldn't say it's a big shock. I mean, UConn and St. John's are really good, but Creighton, I think, is pretty good too. Jerel, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on McDermott's crew?
I like what he did. I think it's going to be a little bit of a culture shock to everybody, just in terms of style of play, because we've gotten, again, another guy who y'all felt, you said Avila was there for 6 years. I felt like Kalkbrenner was there for 8. I'm sure a lot of the coaches in the Big East were very happy to see him go and get out of their hair and go on up and put on the NBA jersey. But I think a lot of what they did, specifically defensively for Creighton, was just it was all built around him and his rim protection, the way that they played. So now they're gonna have to do things a little bit different. I do think they got a great pickup in Owen Freeman from Iowa to kind of step in and fill him. But if you're familiar with him, if you've seen him, he's not Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's not the defensive presence. He's not as big. He's not going to give you the same attributes that Kalkbrenner brings to a team. He's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just going to be a different look. I don't think they'll necessarily get into the top 2. I think it's going to be hard to pull that away from either St. John's or UConn and possibly a couple other teams that could probably surprise us throughout the course of the year as well too. But I still think they'll be in the mix. I'm expecting at least a top 4 finish. I think they got the pieces and they got the talent. And Coach McDermott has a great track record, and regardless of who he has on this roster and what's going on, he seems to just be able to figure out a way to get it done and just kind of play to the strengths of what he has on his roster.
McCall, what you think, man?
Yeah, I think it's an adjustment. And me and you, Dalen, were at the Naismith Award ceremony when Coach McDermott came through. I think the biggest conversation is this is last year, but it's going to be adjustment not having that guy anchoring your defense, sitting in the paint, blocking every single thing that comes through the lane. It's an adjustment. I mean, there's no question about it. You look at Purdue, what Purdue went through last year, losing Zach Edey. That's why I have Purdue getting to a Final Four and possibly win the national championship this year, is just because they had to go through that adjustment not having that guy. And with what they're returning with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Wren, like getting those guys back into their program, going through a year without having Zach Edey, to me makes them even more dangerous. So for Creighton, the storyline, bringing Alan Huss back onto the staff is this Coach McDermott's last year. That's the storyline. And how are they going to deal without having that guy standing in the lane, anchoring that defense? They're not better than UConn, and they're not better than St. John's. I don't see them knocking off either one of those teams in terms of being 1 or 2 in the Big East, just trying to adjust without having that guy anchoring their defense.
Yeah, I mean it is an adjustment. The one thing I will say, I mean, Nick Graves, really good player that transferred from Charlotte. He's been solid. He's dealt with some injury issues. Josh Dix from Iowa. Like McDermott's excited about these guys. I will say this too. That's a freaking hard place to win, man. Like that is the longest road trip in the Big East. They go 20,000 solid every single game. Of course, remember UConn has struggled to win there despite winning national championships. Have not won at Creighton on those national championship teams. It's not easy. What do you think, Mike?
I think they're almost alone in the second tier of the Big East as of now. I don't feel comfortable putting anyone above them after 3. And then St. John's and UConn are in their own tier. I think, to your point, McCall, life after Zach Edey, just like life after Ryan Kalkbrenner, was felt the most for Purdue on the defensive end. They still made Trey Kaufman-Renn. I mean, Braden Smith. They still were not as much of a machine offensively, but they maintained at least a little bit. Major drop-off defensively. And I think that's the question for Creighton this year from an identity standpoint. You could just stick Kalkbrenner back there, air traffic control. And they fouled the least amount out of anybody in the country. They never sent their opponent to the free throw line. They rarely turned you over, but they just kept themselves out of rotation. They forced a lot of 3-point attempts, long twos. And can you replicate that, or do you have to change things? Do you have to get a little bit more aggressive defensively to force more turnovers? Because I think they'll be better offensively. They didn't get many offensive rebounds last year. They turned it over probably more than you would think a Greg McDermott team would turn it over. So I think you see an uptick offensively, but unfortunately probably a downtick defensively without having that stalwart back there. So what does that mean for them? Does that mean they can still hold on to 3rd in the league based off the strength of the league, or do they slide down to 6th or 7th? And does Georgetown come up? And some of these at Marquette, no one talks about them because they don't get transfers and there's not a lot of new, but do they rise up? It's going to be fascinating.
But I would like to ask Jerel this too, like just in terms of having a guy like that protecting the rim. If you're a guard, if you're a wing, and you feel like you can pressure the ball more, because if you get beat, my man's standing back there and he's going to take care of everything. It doesn't matter. So let me be a little bit more aggressively. Mike, I think it's a great point just in terms of that, like the drop-off defensively, not because of necessarily how great of a rim protector he is, his shot blocker he is, but because you may need to give that guard a little bit more space. You may need to give that wing a little bit more space, because now if I get beat, that's on me. And my coach is looking at me. Whereas if I have a guy like that back there and I get beat, he's got it. It doesn't matter. He's got it. He's got that rim protected.
I was just going to jump in and say, Mike, that was one of the biggest things for me. I think that they needed, in a perfect world, to get a little bit more athletic on the perimeter. And like you just spoke to, having a guy like that, a 7'2" guy behind you, you can get very, very, you can create some very bad habits like that, because at the end of the day, like you said, I have no conscience about running the shooter off the line when I know Kalkbrenner's behind me. I can run at this guy full-fledged and make sure he doesn't get the shot off. But now it's going to be a much thinner margin for error, because now you got Owen Freeman back there, and if you give a guy a full head of steam at him, he's going to be in foul trouble, and that's going to change the dynamic of your team, and that's going to impact your team in the wins and loss columns, and affect a lot of more things offensively and defensively as well too. So just having that safety net, man, it changes everything. It kind of changes the mindset. I think they need to get a little bit more athletic on the perimeter. Dix is good for a guy to stretch the floor, but you got to anticipate with a guy like that, and him and even Freeman, those guys are going to be targets for other teams, and they're going to try to come after them on the defensive end and see if they can hold up with some of the matchups that they're going to be given in the Big East night in, night out.
That's a good question from one of our YouTube watchers. So we're in the chat there. Let's keep it in the YouTube chat just because everybody's in there. We got about 10 minutes left, so keep them coming. We'll try to get through a couple more of these before we wrap up the show here in about 10 minutes. At first, when this was first written by our producers, it said, how long will it take Houston's freshmen to adjust? That's when I looked down and saw it. I thought they were talking about just adjust to the game as freshmen. Then the question was fully written out. to Kelvin. There is the difference. I mean, this is a star-studded freshman group led by Chris Sinak. This is a really talented group, but adjusting to playing for that man is a little different. So, Mike, I'll begin with you. You let us know what you think that adjustment period may be like, because this is one of the best coaches in the business, but he does it his own way.
He does, and I think overall the makeup of that team, I think it's crazy to say, I think they got even more athletic. And I think they have a little bit more sudden athleticism this year. But when you talk about getting acclimated to a Kelvin Sampson system, if you really think about it, the defensive scheme and system itself is not complicated. Honestly, like I've made this point before, but the Houstons of the world, the St. John's of the world, the Iowa States of the world, their defensive systems are actually not the best principles. But so it's not about acclimation to the actual system itself. It's acclimation to how freaking hard you have to play consistently and not take plays off. Like that has been such a hallmark of those Kelvin Sampson systems. So it's developing less of like, hey, I got to get all the knowledge in and eliminate the thinking. Houston defenses don't think, they just go. And so you got to find a way to play like that. And find your motor night in and night out. That's going to be the toughest part for these freshmen.
Jump in, fellas. What do you got? Go ahead, Jerel.
No, I mean, I think you hit it on the head with that as well, Mike. It's just, I mean, it's not the system. Don't get me wrong. They have a good system. They're aggressive as hell in everything that they do. We talk and we compliment them so much about their intensity on defense and the way that they rebound the ball. But the biggest attributes about that is, like he said, is learning how to sell out and play at a very a high level, hard as you possibly can, essentially for a longer period of time. And that's more than anything going to be a focus thing. Is going to be a conditioning thing. I always get a kick out. I watched that video with those guys. They had those clips they were releasing when they were doing like the mile run on the track, man. And I always get PTSD from that, man. It was something crazy. Like they was all like sub 6 minutes or 5 minutes with their mile. Like, man, so they, those guys are built different, man. And it's his way or the highway. So, at the end of the day, with the time that they've spent throughout the summer for those young guys and leading up into the season, that it's gonna be, it's either gonna make you or it's gonna break you. And if they haven't broken yet, at some point they're gonna figure it out. And their bodies and their conditioning and their IQ level is going to catch up to the talent level, and they're going to end up being able to help that team. And I essentially believe they're going to be right back in position to make another run at it this year as well. So,
no, Drew, I'm with you. I think they could win it all. To be honest with you, you could make the argument though, with the day and age that we're in terms of college athletics, these freshmen, they don't know what they don't know. So if you're taking a transfer in college that's played for a certain coach that does things a certain way, it could be a harder adjustment to go play for Coach Sampson and how they want to guard and how they want to defend and how every middle ball screen, if you're a front court player, you have to sprint out there, and not only do you have to call the coverage and call it loud, you have to be above the offensive player that's setting the screen, and then you have to keep the guard in front of them, and then the protection behind the pick and roll, you have to be there to protect that ball screen, and if the ball gets skipped, you have to be there to close out. Like, freshmen don't know. They have no idea. This is their first time in college. They think this is the norm, where if I'm at school A and I'm transferring into Houston, I'm like, oh, this is a little bit different deal for me. Because I did not have to play this hard on the defensive end of the floor. I didn't have to play this hard. So you can make the argument it's a bigger adjustment for a transfer going into Houston than a high school player going there with how they guard and how they play defense.
It's funny you said. I've heard some coaches say before about that very thing. It's like with high school kids are coming in, the biggest change is making them play at a consistent level hard, especially in the defensive end, and then understanding the principles behind it. You're going to either break a few bad habits, or sometimes they just don't have the habits. You're molding them from the beginning, to your point, McCall. Whereas you're bringing in transfers, a lot of times you're stripping down some bad habits you may have learned, or culture that, especially if you're from a losing program, you're trying to rewire guys in terms of how you win. that may not be very easy. So like there was a different approach there. I'm excited to see these guys. And they're obviously the players era. That's going to have a couple huge games out there. And I will say this, Miles Uzan was I think he was the most improved player all year last year and could easily be a first-team All-American. And I'm excited to see that young man play again. And McCall, we were there when they lost that game, man. And we were there when they won, and the elation they felt, and the pain, the death that you felt in that locker room with Duke. And it was the exact opposite 48 hours later in terms of how that game went down. I know that drove those guys, and those two guards, especially him, Sharp, and JoJo as well, the big, one of the most versatile bigs in the country in terms of, especially defensively, quite a bit in the offseason. All right, let's get to this last question in the YouTube chat here. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Jump in.
No, I was just go to the next question because we'll have plenty of season to talk about Houston. Go to the next question.
you ain't gonna lie. We got a lot to get through there. This is. I'll start with you then, Mike. Here too. This is with your Illinois jersey over your left shoulder. Is this Brad Underwood's most talented team at Illinois? Go ahead.
Ooh.
The 21 team was really, really talented with Kofi and with Ayo and good Andre Curbelo off the bench. Honestly, I've been pretty blown away with them in the preseason here, just because the depth that they have and the IQ that they have. It's a really talented team, just from like a basketball IQ standpoint, from the standpoint of seeing them play even just against Illinois State and really missing three of their arguably like top 6 guys, just how seamless things were. And all that stems from IQ. And so that I think it's the smartest team that Brad Underwood's had for sure. And that's just, and one of the toughest too. And that's just going to help them, I think, not ride the roller coaster that they rode last year, where it's like they're either winning by 20 or losing by 20. You cannot have that. But I think the talent level itself, my big thing with Illinois this year is, your A game, which they had against Oregon last year when they won by 32 on the road. I mean, you truly have like 6 A games a year, like clicking on all cylinders, run a team out of the gym. You have maybe 5 or 6 of those a year for good teams. But what are your B and C games like? And I think Illinois' B and C games this year are going to be much better, which will help their floor, help them win more games in conference. And I think contend for a Big Ten title.
McCall?
I think more than any coach maybe in the country, and Mike, you can speak to this, Underwood has evolved. Like when he first became like a head coach, the toughness, the rebounding, we're running this spread motion offense where we're setting hammer screens at the elbow. We're just going to pound the ball inside. Like, this is what we're doing. I'm setting my ways. This is how we're playing the game. The guy is completely evolved in terms of that and is spreading the floor out and shooting a ton of threes. Not that they don't still have that toughness piece of it, like the mentality and the values of what he wants his teams to be, but he has evolved as a coach with the times.
Yeah.
1,000%. And I respect that so much, because you see some of these guys that have had so much success at other schools, and it's like, no, this is the only way we're doing things. No, this offense worked at this school, and we won 100 games at this place. This is, it's going to work here. He's not like that.
He's
not like that.
This
at all.
day and
He's
age,
completely
you can't.
changed his recruiting philosophy.
You can't do it. Well, what he's been so good at, McCall, like, to your point, look at the era that we're in. You can't, like, if you're stubborn and you say, here's my system, here's 7 new guys, 8 new guys, whatever it may be, you don't have time. You don't have time to bring guys. Like, what he has done such a good job of is, what is my personnel mold system, simplify system to get results, and then build. So, like, I mean, he was deny everything, give up back cuts. They fouled like crazy when he first got there to Illinois. And it just wasn't sustainable in the Big Ten. Kofi comes in, you play more drop coverage, you go 4 out, 1 in. Okay, now it's Coleman Hawkins. We're playing 5 out. We got Marcus Demas. We're going into back downs, and we want to play faster. We have Terrence Shannon. Kasparas Yakashonis comes in. Let's do a lot of middle pick and roll, high pick and roll. And now this year, I think they're going to go back to what 23-24 was, with more back downs and more like possession control and stuff that we saw in that Elite Eight run. So, yeah, again, could go all day on this.
Go back and watch the offense that he was. Go back and watch the offense he was running at Stephen F. Austin. Everything was run within the 3-point line. Everything was run within the 3-point line. Like there was no spacing. It was like that. It was called spread. It was like the hammer screen on the elbow. And to be honest with you, they were running at South Carolina when he was running the offense for Frank Martin. And it was like the easiest thing to guard, like, or scout against. It's like, we don't have this. Everything's with it. We're paranoid about giving up threes. We're not giving up anything. We're not giving up anything.
I'm assuming it's probably because he let go of the reins on running the offense, Matt. From what I hear, for the most part, everything runs through the son offensively.
Who's done a really good job, by the way.
They've
had a top 50 offense in the last 3 years.
Like you guys said, you spoke to it. They kind of, come into, the 2020s with their offensive schemes and things like that, and they're playing a lot more open things with stretching the floor, shooting the ball, and things like that. But to go back and answer the question, no, this isn't his most talented team. I don't particularly think it's close, and I guess I'll kind of pivot, and I guess I'll even pose this as a question to you guys, because I don't know, something about me just doesn't sit right, man. He went and changed his philosophy recruiting wise as well too. But I feel like he may have went a little bit too far. Just going to get the European guys. I get that he's got what he wants. He has high IQ, low maintenance guys, can stretch the floor, they're skilled and all that stuff, fundamentally sound. But I almost feel like they're almost forgetting about the defensive side of the ball. Outside of Boswell, and it also is going to, I think, do them a big disservice, the fact that Ty Rodgers won't be available right away. Those are the two best defenders on that team. And they're probably the two worst shooters. So where do you find that balance of having guys on the floor that can not only run your offense, make reads, make shots, and make the right play, but also, again, leading back into this, having a level of toughness, a level of physicality, be able to rebound the ball, to be able to keep and guard and keep some of these electric guards in front of you. It still is the Big Ten. Like, you guys know it's gonna be a bloodbath some nights, man. Those games get ugly, and it ain't always gonna be let's get up 53s and we gonna make 16 of them and win the game. You're gonna have to win ugly sometimes, and I'm not saying that they won't be good, that they're not good. I know he's got good guys and great pieces, but man, that's just one of the teams where I feel like everybody's real high on them right now, where I can see it kind of being an issue as they get in the conference play. I think they will do really well in the non-conference because teams won't be as prepared or familiar with them or the personnel. But you know how it is. The more games you stack up on Synergy, the more guys are figuring you out, and they'll have those guys down cold by the time they get to conference play.
I'll just real quick, just to as a rebuttal here, because I think we've seen it in the Big Ten, and honestly, like, I think an underrated component of what this Illinois team has is, like, I think the natural thought is like, okay, international, not as nasty. People are going to get to know David Mirkovic, and he's nasty. Like, he is nasty. And he plays that way. He plays with an edge. He's tough as hell. And I think between him and Keaton Wagler, this is what ends up happening with – I go back to Indiana in 22-23 when they were a 9-11 the previous year and then finished second in the Big Ten because of Jalen Hood-Schifino. Like, he changed the ceiling of that team, and it was a freshman that we just weren't really accounting for raising that ceiling. Just same thing as Jace Richardson last year. We thought about Michigan State a certain way, and then Jace Richardson kind of pushed them through that ceiling. I think Tommy Avicic is one of the most underrated bigs in the country. When he was on the floor last year, Illinois shot like 75% from 2 because of his ability to stretch the floor, beat 5 out. Stojakovic, I think, is a better defender than people give him credit for. I mean, dude had 7 blocks against Notre Dame last year. Like they just, I'm really high on them, and that's not just because I have a jersey behind me. I think, and it all stems from Mirkovic and Wagler. Like those are 2 guys that I think really make the personnel make sense. A lot of talk about Petrovic, and I think he'll get time, of course, but Wagler emerging is what I think is probably going to be their starting point guard is, changes the calculus because he is a really, really good player that's been a winner his whole career that didn't play on a shoe circuit in AU, so no one knows who the hell he is. But they got some dudes, man.
Sorry, and just to be clear, I didn't want that to come off as me saying like the Euro guys are soft. Because trust me, they got a lot of Serbians. I spent a lot of time overseas. Like,
yeah, totally.
So those are some of the toughest dudes on the planet. So I'm not saying that. Oh my God, look, shower, locker room, and we'll go out there and tear you to pieces. Like the win is a full goal. But I was just more so thinking in terms of things like perimeter defense, foot speed.
Yeah.
With the brothers, Ivicic, they're going to try to pull those guys out of the paint and attack them in ball screen, pick and roll situations. Are they going to be able to do what they need to do on the defensive end? I don't have any worries on the offensive end. Are those guys going to be able to hold up and keep Big Ten level guards in front of them on a consistent basis night in, night out? That's all I was saying.
And I think the important part is they have a new defensive coordinator in Cam Crocker. Like they brought this guy in specifically to handle the defense. They want to force more turnovers this year. They're not going to sit and drop all year and have teams, try to pick on them getting downhill pull-ups. So there are going to be changes there. But the last thing I want to mention about Mirkovic is because it's hilarious. Like you talk about like the Serbian, Croatian, Montenegrin. There was a picture from the secret scrimmage with Florida, and he's going up for a layup, and you can see this tattoo on his like lower like thigh. And it's one is the Scream character making a phone call like in the kitchen, like from the movie Scream, and then the other character is Chucky.
Okay, so he can hoop, but he might be a murderer. He might be a murderer.
Like,
a man
dude, I'm telling you. Yeah,
he's smoking cigarettes at halftime. I mean that's happened.
100%.
Heaters. All right, we're going to wrap on that. We'll find out if Illinois can guard enough. Lord knows, I bet you they can get buckets, though. Those dudes have high IQ, can space the floor. Got some guys that can make some plays. We will find out. Keep it locked here. Field of 68, Monday, 8 a.m. They get things going. The full marathon coming your way. Check it out on YouTube, on X. And then there will be a show afterwards after games down in South Carolina. Also out in Sanford, the Pentagon. McCall, I know you'll be there. Got it covered on Field of 68 here. And then at night, wrapping up everything from day one in college hoops, just days away on Monday night. We'll check you then. We're out.